A day after Pakistan captured Indian Air Force pilot Wing Commander Abhinandan, India has sent out an unequivocal message that it will not strike a deal for his return. Top government sources saying that Pakistan must repatriate Wing Commander Abhinandan unconditionally and unharmed. To that end, India has sought his immediate release and hasn't asked Pakistan for consular access to him. Government sources also say that unlike what happened in Kandahar in 1999, this time Pakistan will not be allowed to use Indians to pressurize India. However, Pakistan government sources have told cnbc TV 18's Parikshit Luthra that the timing of the return of Wing Commander Abhinandan will be subject to the end of hostilities. They also add that Pakistan will return the Indian Air Force pilot, but India must engage on reducing tensions. Meanwhile, India has intensified diplomatic offensive against Pakistan-based terror group Jaish-e-Mohammed. Top government sources say that 4 out of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, including the US, UK, Russia and France, are firmly with India. However, China continues to remain ambiguous. Remember, US, UK and France have already asked the UN Security Council to blacklist Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar. Amidst rising tensions, US President Donald Trump has said that he believes the hostilities between India and Pakistan will hopefully come to an end. Addressing the media in Vietnam, the US President said, and I quote, "I have some reasonably decent news from India and Pakistan," unquote. However, he did not share details. Back home, Prime Minister Modi has said, and I quote again, "Indians will fight as one and we will win as one." The Prime Minister made this statement while interacting with BJP workers through video conferencing for the party's Mera Booth Sabse Mazboot program. Opposition parties criticizing the Prime Minister for this interaction, the Congress accusing the Prime Minister of being desperate for re-election.
India will live as one. India will work as one. India will grow as one. India will fight as one. India will win as one. हमारा देश नई नीति और नई रीति के साथ अपनी क्षमताओं का विस्तार करने में जुटा है.
We have, I think, reasonably attractive news from Pakistan and India. They've been going at it, and we've been involved in trying to have them stop. And we have some reasonably decent news. I think, hopefully, that's going to be coming to an end. It's been going on for a long time, decades and decades. There's a lot of dislike, unfortunately. So we've been in the middle trying to help them both out, see if we can get some organization and some peace, and I think probably that's going to be happening.
Well, that's President Trump saying he believes that there will be an end to hostilities between India and Pakistan soon. Reasonably attractive news is how he described information that the US is getting from both India and Pakistan. Also saying very categorically that the US has been involved. Parikshit Luthra has been tracking this story through the day now. India's stance over securing the release of Wing Commander Abhinandan, Parikshit, and also on the possibilities of escalation control measures between India and Pakistan. What are you picking up?
Well, India today trying to send out a very strong message to Pakistan. Earlier today, we reported how the Pakistani government, and these were highly placed sources in Pakistan, who were saying that they are ready to return Wing Commander Abhinandan, and they're sure that he has to be returned at some point in future, but it will happen subject to ending of hostilities and only if India comes to the negotiating table to talk about peace. India today made it very clear that there can be no deal on Wing Commander Abhinandan. He cannot be used as a bargaining tool by Pakistan, and they cannot hold an entire country hostage just because of one individual. They also sent out a warning that what happened during Kandahar will not happen again. They also said that the kind of treatment meted out to squadron leader Ahuja way back in '98 during the Kargil conflict, squadron leader Ahuja had landed in Pakistani territory after his aircraft was shot down, and he was shot in cold blood. that kind of treatment will never be accepted again. So this is a very strong language used by top Indian government sources. They're also saying that Pakistan is trying to hoodwink the international community by using fictitious statements, blaming India of aggression, saying that India is moving its Navy warships, it is launching missiles against Pakistan. All of this is being done only to create a false narrative. India is going to keep the narrative firmly on counter-terrorism, on fighting against terror, and they're telling all foreign envoys, all diplomatic missions have been told to instruct their countries, their ministers, that India targeted Jaish-e-Mohammed and Pakistan targeted Indian military installations. Pakistan is the aggressor here, and so if anyone has to de-escalate, de-escalation has to begin with Pakistan. There have been a lot of reports about Wing Commander Abhinandan as well. We reached out to the Red Cross for a comment. They said that there are no reports of his return at this juncture, but they're working through a humanitarian dialogue with both countries at this point. So negotiations going on at multiple levels. India trying to keep up the pressure on Pakistan, also pointing out to Imran Khan that you have to walk the talk on terror, and we cannot start talking until and unless you take creditable, verifiable and immediate action against terror groups on your soil.
Parikshit, appreciate you joining us. And that's important, the last bit of information that Parikshit was giving us. Red Cross telling CNBC TV 18 that this is bases our query on whether the Red Cross was involved in trying to bring back Wing Commander Abhinandan in any form or fashion. Remember, these reports have been doing the rounds of social media as well, unverified, and that's the Red Cross response to CNBC TV 18. To take this discussion forward, joining us now, former diplomats Prabhu Dayal and KC Singh. Also with us, the editor for First Post, Praveen Swami. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Praveen Swami, if I could come to you first. Imran Khan once again making the offer for talks. We heard similar statements coming in yesterday as well from the Foreign Affairs Minister of Pakistan, repeating once again this morning, also saying that they're open to mediation from the Saudis as well as China if that were to be the case. India, of course, has said that there is no question of any third-party mediation and there is no question of talks with Pakistan unless there is immediate, verifiable and credible action against terror. Now, what will that entail, Praveen? And I'll ask you this in the context of the report that you've just put out on First Post, that this is not the first time that Pakistan looks like it will act against the JEM. There has been action in the past that Pakistan has taken against the Jaish-e-Mohammed, but that's really been trying to capture the headlines and placate the international community, because the Jaish-e-Mohammed continues to operate in Pakistan and there has been complicity with the Pakistani establishment.
Absolutely, Shireen. There have been assurances. There were assurances in 2002 from General Pervez Musharraf's regime. There were again assurances from Prime Minister Asif Ali Zardari in 2008 after 26/11, and yet again assurances from Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif after the Pathankot attacks. And on each occasion, some action was taken against the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Typically, Masood Azhar was locked up for a few days or weeks and then released, and the Jaish-e-Mohammed's terror machine was allowed to resume functioning quite openly. They were allowed to raise funds, they were allowed to buy land, build buildings and so on. And this time, Prime Minister Modi will be seeking some assurance, not just from Pakistan, but from other countries that are involved in this crisis right now in a peacemaking role, that there aren't going to be empty promises. It would be disastrous for the Prime Minister, for example, if at the end of this crisis, 4 weeks later or 8 weeks later, you have another big terrorist attack. So those assurances will be at the core of this conflict resolution process. Having said that, it's also, I think the big picture is quite clear that both countries have no desire to ratchet this crisis up to levels they might find it difficult to step back from. India believes it's made its point by showing it's willing to strike across the line of control deep into Pakistan in pursuit of terrorists. Pakistan probably believes it's made its point that it will retaliate against any military action and ratchet up things to the level of a major crisis. And I think now sensible leaders in both countries would, I hesitate to use a sporting metaphor for something as serious as this, but call a draw and back off from the brink. I think that's the big picture here. Now, what the sequencing of this will be, what the elements of that deal will be, whether we will first seek the release of our pilot from Pakistan and then agree to talk on terrorism, or whether there will be some other modality, that's very hard to say right now.
Absolutely. You know, it is hard to predetermine what the sequencing of events will be. But just on the issue of talks, Praveen, before I get the other panelists in, Imran Khan once again saying that he is willing to reach out to India, to talk with India on all issues, including the issue of terrorism. We are given to understand, and this is, of course, source-based information, that Imran Khan may, in fact, call Prime Minister Modi, and also part of the conversation may include the offer to return Wing Commander Abhinandan. Now, what would you believe will be, the considerations that India will put on the table before it decides to engage in any kind of formal conversation?
Look, Imran Khan, Prime Minister Khan, made his position fairly clear at a press conference right after the Pulwama attacks, his first one, where he said, in essence, that, look, every time we want to talk to the Indians about Kashmir, they say, no, we need terrorism to end first. We're not going to talk about Kashmir while there's terrorism. So, okay, I'm willing to talk about terrorism, and we'll see where the conversation ends. He's, I suspect, going to reiterate that formulation to Prime Minister Modi. And my guessing is that Prime Minister Modi will, in essence, say, I'm grateful for these nice words. I'm glad you're willing to have a conversation. But we do have this history of promises being made and broken. We need some assurances that this time you actually mean to do something about it. Because we cannot be in a situation where every 3 months you have Fedayeen attacks in Kashmir on our troops, particularly in the midst of an election cycle where it will be very, very difficult for a Prime Minister to hold back and demonstrate the restraint that's been there even in this crisis. Now, you know, a lot of these conversations are going to happen privately. What we see in the media, what we're briefed about, is going to be really the tip of the iceberg. But I suspect these two leaders will be having a very, very meaty conversation on the nuts and bolts of restraint very soon.
Okay, speaking of leaders and leaders' reactions to the developments in India and Pakistan, Ambassador Singh, if I could get you to comment on what we heard from President Donald Trump speaking post that aborted North Korean summit in Vietnam. President Trump saying that we have reasonably, and I'm quoting him, reasonably attractive news. He then used the word reasonably decent news coming in from India and Pakistan, very clearly stating in his comments that we have been involved. What do you make of President Trump's statements, and also the fact that the NSA has had apparently a 25-minute-long conversation with the U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo, how the U.S. is likely to be playing this out as well?
Look, we haven't seen the kind of U.S. activism that we used to see in the past. More than Secretary of State, they would have general in charge of CENTCOM coming in, because you have to basically deal with the Pakistani military. We've seen that, and President Trump has been distracted because he was in Vietnam all through this. This is the first statement which has come as he's probably wrapping up this, where he was meeting the North Korean leader. So his focus was there. With Trump, you can't be very sure because there's never great attention to detail. So he may have picked up bits and parts of the conversations that the US are having and picked up the sanguine parts out of it and may not realize the complications involved. I think the complications are multifold. I don't think it's as simple as Imran Khan speaking to Mr. Modi, because Mr. Modi has, going into the election, a huge constituency problem. And it would be, he needs something which he can show as victory, as success. It is true that with the shooting down of MiG-21, Imran Khan has had a face saver. So to that extent, he doesn't need to do more than that, because he has established that they can also cross the LOC. And today, I believe a number of Pakistani planes were testing that, coming within 10 kilometers of LOC. Now that's part of the posturing that will go on. But what is it that you can have? I don't think you're going to get the Air Force officers straight away. Pakistan will hold back till we de-escalate fully, because it's possible tomorrow one of their planes is shot down and India picks up a pilot. Then they'll have nothing to negotiate with. It is also true that India is not going to start talking on the basis of the pilot coming back. That's just too much too far, which is correct. It's not a hostage situation. It is under the Geneva Convention, somebody in uniform who's been taken by a state. And there are rules that govern how he is held and how he is repatriated. So we are holding Pakistan to that.
Yes.
But probably the repatriation will be a sign of goodwill, which can only come after the ice is broken. Which means we de-escalate, we are no longer testing each other around the LOC, there is no imminent danger, there are no curfews being announced, there are no sirens being tested, etc. So first thing is that, how do you step back? Next will come, okay, no question of talks at this stage, in any case government only has 2-3 months, but talks every opening to Pakistan is not resumption of the old dialogue. Talking doesn't mean a dialogue to sort out all problems. And I think Imran Khan is unrealistic if he thinks this government, or in fact any government, is going to basically say, all right, you act on terror and we'll discuss everything with you. He wants to discuss again terror simultaneously with all the 8 subjects, 8 bouquets that we had. That I think is a no-no. We've gone way past it. India has defined a new doctrine, which is that we'll go and hit unilaterally. We don't necessarily go via Islamabad. It may or may not be done each time, but it's something that India has now established. And Pakistan has to get used to it. So there is a new strategic doctrine, there's a new strategic equation being established between India and Pakistan. And in that, US has a role to play. But how attentive President Trump is and how much is really happening on the ground, I don't know. And how serious Delhi is to speed it up.
Yes.
Because, they are, if they feel that it's benefiting them electorally to go on the way they are, they may just carry on like this and say, okay, we'll see after May. Or if he gets a victory where Pakistan is forced to dismantle their terror mechanism, and that last point is because of FATF, because of UN Security Council. If the Chinese back off in the latest resolution introduced there, and Pakistan is already on the watch list, if by October it has to be determined whether they go on the blacklist, I think then they come under pressure. It is not only just US, India. It becomes a multilateral effort to punish them economically when really their finances are on a shoestring.
Absolutely. Let me go across to Prabhu Dayal. Mr. Dayal, just to pick up on the points being made both by Ambassador Singh as well as Praveen Swami. Praveen was talking about the sequencing, and the view from the Indian government is absolutely clear that, look, we did not go after either the Pakistani Air Force, the Pakistani Army or any Pakistani military installation. We went after the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Pakistan retaliated by going after our military installations. They targeted our military, and hence they have escalated. We haven't. So de-escalation is squarely in Pakistan's court. Now, what would you expect? The steps on stepping back, what would you expect in terms of the sequencing from here on, sir, given everything that's happened?
I entirely agree with Ambassador Singh. At the center of whatever has happened in recent months is the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Now, there is a lot of international pressure on Pakistan to proscribe Jaish-e-Mohammed. But then Jaish-e-Mohammed was banned since 2002. After the assassination, the killing of Daniel Pearl, the Americans had put a lot of pressure on Pakistan. And then Jaish had also tried to assassinate Parvez Musharraf. So for a variety of reasons, the Pakistanis found it expedient to place a ban on the Jaish-e-Mohammed. But this very clever outfit, this very mischievous outfit has been changing names. It became the Tehreek-e-Furqan. Then it became the Khuddam-e-Allah or something like that. The point is that it has merely changed names, become a sort of a camouflaged charity organization, and survived and thrived.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that it is a proxy of the Pakistan Army. The Pakistan Army has been using the Jaish-e-Mohammed, so it just changes color, changes names, and continues to act. The main issue is putting a ban and proscribing its key actors, its key leaders, in particularly Masood Azhar, whom I refuse to call a Maulana, because a Maulana is a learned man and Masood Azhar is a terrorist. Now, Why is it difficult till now to put a ban on Masood Azhar? The Chinese have been protected towards him. And why are the Chinese protective? Because he's again their go-to man. He is the one who protects Chinese interests in Pakistan. The Chinese are investing heavily in terms of their CPEC and all that. Masood Azhar is their gunda, their hireling who protects their interests. So they will go to any length to prevent him from getting into any sort of trouble. Now, coming to the present situation, we certainly want action against Jaish-e-Mohammed. Because although it is a banned organization, it has thrived under different names. We want restrictions and action against Masood Azhar. The problem is Pakistan is going to be as unwilling as ever to actually do anything. We need international pressure on Pakistan. Again, China will play an obstacles role. So I think that when Donald Trump seems to be taking some interest, it's a good sign, because after all, he is the head of the state of the most important and the most powerful country on the world. Unfortunately, he is mired in his own problems, his domestic problems, his problems vis-a-vis the Republicans, the Democrats, his issues relating to the border wall, now his negotiations with North Korea, then the trade war with China. But even if he were to send certain signals to Pakistan that he wants a clampdown on Masood Azhar, it might be helpful. The difficulty is that this terrorist Maulana Masood Azhar hurts us more than anybody else. So at the end of the day, we will have to take the necessary steps ourselves. This is a problem which we have to confront ourselves.
What could those necessary steps be? And I want to go back to Praveen Swami, because Praveen, the point that was being made there by Prabhu Dayal, you've pretty much said exactly that the Jaish-e-Mohammed operates like a many-headed serpent. So will this new Indian doctrine that both KC Singh as well as Prabhu Dayal and you were talking about, will it really hit the Jaish-e-Mohammed's operations in Pakistan? Even if there were to be UN Security Council action against Masood Azhar, what will it really mean in terms of Jaish-e-Mohammed's activities?
Well, sadly, not very much. I mean, we just have to look at the case of Hafiz Mohammad Saeed of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, who is a proscribed individual, as we would like Masood Azhar to be. He's been proscribed since 2611. And the Pakistanis haven't done a thing about him. The Lashkar-e-Taiba is as dangerous an organization as it was on 2611. The problem is here that the options aren't good. Airstrikes are certainly not going to degrade the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Let's look at the fact that the United States spent several years and took over 400 drone strikes to degrade Al-Qaeda in Pakistan's North and South Waziristan. These kinds of things call for long, patient military operations. And in this particular case, the Jaish-e-Mohammed's terrorists run into the thousands, if not tens of thousands. They're well embedded in a population. The organization raises money. The organization has the support of government. So if we have any chance of degrading it, it's to convince or coerce the Pakistan government into acting against it. Now, that's a big ask, because what Imran Khan has essentially done this time is to say, fine, you can attack me, but I'm going to hit you back. I'm going to protect this organization, and I'm going to raise the stakes to such a level that it's really not worth it to you to take it further. I wish I had an answer to this problem. Indian prime ministers have grappled with it. Very smart minds in our government and outside our government have grappled with it for 2 decades. And, I'm afraid I just don't have an answer. But we have to accept as Indians that this is a problem for which there's no magic one-day solution. We're going to have to confront this problem incrementally over the long haul.
Praveen, just on the issue of this preemptive strike that was conducted, I'm limiting my question to this because there have been reports now coming in from mainstream media that were taken by the Pakistan army, given a tour of what seemed to be the strike point on account of India's military action against the Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camp. And we've seen what those reports seem to suggest. But what are you picking up in terms of how effective our strikes have been?
Well, these media reports are a bit confusing, to be honest, because they all consistently say, first, that there was no actual, not very much damage, a few trees were hit, a few civilians were injured. But without exception, all these media reports also say that the Pakistan army didn't, or somebody didn't let them go to the actual site of the attacks. The journalists seem, from the images we've been seeing, have been taken to where the signboard pointing the way to the seminary in the mountains is, not up the track to the actual seminary itself. So we don't have witnesses. But what I understand the intelligence services have been telling the National Security Advisor is that on the basis of intercepted communications and on the basis of what their assets on the ground are telling them, they're extremely confident that at least 90 people have been killed in these strikes. Packed inside this camp, including some retired Pakistan army personnel who were working there as trainers. Now, as I said, nobody's been there and there's no way of verifying this. But I'm very sure as days go by, we live in the age of social media, images and so on of bodies buried, injured people will emerge.
That is what Praveen is picking up from intelligence agencies, that it could have been about 90 people that were impacted by that preemptive strike that India conducted. But let me get final comments from Ambassador K.C. Singh and Prabhu Dayal. And Ambassador Singh, I'll start by asking you, what would you like to see in terms of next steps now, sir? We have Wing Commander Abhinandan in Pakistan custody. There could be a grand gesture that Imran Khan may choose to make to try and capture headlines globally and change the narrative towards Pakistan. India has made it very clear that we would not like to see a situation like Kandahar. That's been made evidently clear today in a briefing that was held off cameras a short while ago. What would you now expect in terms of next steps?
Well, next step is first is de-escalation, that we stop sending planes up to LOC, we stop saber rattling. That can only happen if US is working with Pakistan and some assurance comes in that Imran Khan will probably wait and see the Chinese behavior at the Security Council. If the UNSC resolution passes through on the listing of Masood Azhar, then that puts the pressure, then that gives India a pretext to step back a little and say now the international community is beginning to act. And the international community will say, please step back, we are getting into the act. We are working on Pakistan. We will tell you if we cannot get anything delivered. In any case, you have your doctrine. You can always come back. Now, of course, some military people are saying, no, we can't de-escalate and escalate. De-escalate doesn't mean that, those planes are anyway not in Jammu and Kashmir. And we are mainly escalating in terms of air power. And air power is easy to, again, deploy. It is not something as ground troops. Yes, ground troops should also be on alert. But last time, after the attack on Parliament, we had the ground troops on alert for 13, 14 months. So this is a long game. I don't see any quick resolution. And BJP may not be able to get the kind of victory they want before the election. But I do hope they are not forced to escalate further, because that's not good for either country.
Right. Ms. Dayal, I'll give you the final say, sir. As Ambassador Singh and Praveen were mentioning, the UN Security Council resolution is, of course, going to be key. What impact that will have remains to be seen. But we've also got another significant trigger, which is the OIC meeting. Pakistan is back and forth on whether they will attend or not. Finally, seem to suggest that they will attend. Sushma Swaraj will be there as guest of honor. How significant will this be? And what kind of international diplomatic offensive, next steps on India's part, would you expect from here on?
Well, certainly attending the OIC meeting would be helpful in the sense that Pakistan is an influential member in the OIC, and if at that forum there could be some discussions on the need to de-escalate, then I think it would be overall very good for both the countries. I agree with Ambassador Singh, my senior colleague, that the elections are a factor in all this, and maybe things will not work out so quickly. I see on your channel newsline that no deal on Abhinandan. This is what India is saying. I don't really think that this is going to be the case, because with the elections around the corner, the government is going to be under pressure to get Abhinandan released, because this is going to be an emotive issue otherwise. So on balance,
yes,
I think it is important for both India and Pakistan to de-escalate, and I have come across reports that Imran Khan is going to be phoning Prime Minister Modi. If that happens, it's a good sign.
That's right.
And neither country can afford escalation. It's in the interests of both countries to de-escalate, as Ambassador Singh mentioned. But at the same time, we have to be reasonable. We cannot be very rigid. And I think the government has to play the cards very close to its chest, because if there is going to be any arrangement worked out, then it tends to get sabotaged if it's all out in the open. There are too many people willing to spoil the whole arrangement. So the need of the hour is prudence, the need of the hour is sagacity, and the need of the hour is flexibility. Because this situation is not good for anybody. Escalation would be worse, and I think prudence would require de-escalation.
Well, that is the perfect note to end this conversation on prudence, sagacity, flexibility, restraint and reason. That is what both sides should deploy in order for us to be able to move forward in a meaningful way. Praveen Swami, Ambassador KC Singh and Prabhu Dayal, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on this CNBC TV 18 special to discuss the developments of the day and the road ahead. We'll take a break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere.